Joe Montgomery here from educationlawyers.com with your coronavirus updates as of March 30th, 2020. 2020. So first, I recommend that you Google Barbara Walters' 2020 montage where they have her saying 2020 about like a million times. And at the end of it, you feel like 2020, it's not even real words anymore. But here are our updates. And I think in the biggest news today, and this was just released a few minutes ago, Governor Wolf has made the official decision to indefinitely postpone the opening of schools as well as non-essential businesses. And what this means is that we can start accepting our reality, right? So it's a sad thing and it's bad news. And I definitely took a couple minutes to feel sad about it and, accept the fact that the next 30 days of our lives are pretty much going to be the exact same as the last 2 weeks of our lives. But the silver lining in this is that now we can start taking action moving forward, right? We can accept this new normal and we can move forward knowing that, okay, for at least the next 30 days, this is life. Governor Wolf's words were that right now, Pennsylvania is not a safe place to be. He called the coronavirus a sneaky virus, which I think we all know by now. It is a pretty sneaky virus and that we don't know if we have it, right? I could very well be sitting here with the virus and I could be feeling great, but I could be passing it on to people. But I'm doing my part. I'm following the rules because, oh my goodness, if anything, the internet and memes have really stepped up. Netflix has stepped up. Tiger King documentary was definitely released at the right time for all this. So anyway, back to my point in that I'm stepping up, everyone should be stepping up. The meme I saw, the analogy was to a class, and where the class keeps losing recess because that one kid has to keep being the class clown. And that's kind of how it is, right? The sooner the whole class just cooperates with the teacher, the sooner we follow the directions, the less recess we're going to lose in the long run, right? But now we have to swallow the tough medicine that we're losing at least 30 days of recess. But again, the good news is that now we know, right? So now we can plan and prepare. And hopefully for the last 2 weeks, we have been planning and preparing. Some schools have been planning and preparing better than others, but now every school must make a plan, right? During coronavirus, school districts must deliver online learning. That's what we know. These are the updates coming from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And now the fact that Governor Wolf has acknowledged that we're not going to be back in 2 weeks, right? It's, again, the analogy I made before was to the friend who you're waiting on and they haven't left the house, but they're like, no, I'm on the way, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Compared to the friend who says, like, look, it's going to be 2 hours, something came up, right? You don't want to swallow that tough 2-hour medicine, but it's better because then at least you can plan accordingly. So the fact that Governor Wolf has now acknowledged schools aren't opening anytime soon, schools that might have been waiting for that April 1st start date, which is going to come and go, or that April 15th start date, which is going to come and go, can now say, here is our reality. We're going to plan and we're going to program accordingly. What's that mean? It means cyber education. It means online learning, and it means making sure that we close the gap in the digital divide and we get technology in the hands of not only the rich, but the poor citizens. And hopefully during this past 2 weeks, schools have been meeting and taking action and making decisions on what they can do moving forward, right? I know, spending countless hours researching what every school district is doing, that every school district's really moving at their own pace. School districts like Cherry Hill in New Jersey, they got computers out to their students within a few days of shutting down. So hats off to you, Cherry Hill, good work. Cheltenham School District in Pennsylvania was polling parents this week to see if their kids had access to technology, and they had plans for some structured learning to begin in mid-April. So mid-April is going to be here soon. Hopefully schools have ramped up over the last 2 weeks, right? We know for sure, there's no getting around it, that by and large schools were not prepared for this. Few people, if anyone, saw this coming, but schools did not have a backup plan or a contingency plan if all the school buildings closed, right? We're ready for that 1 or 2 off snow day, and what do? We add days to the end of the year, but now we can't do that. But here we are, forced to make a plan, and unfortunately, we're building the parachute after we've jumped out of the airplane, but hopefully we can figure it out before we hit the ground. It reminds me of a travel buddy that I had, and I was climbing to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro with him, and we were talking about our training, and he was kind of kidding around the whole time that his training was the first half of the mountain. He said, the first half of the mountain is how I'm going to train myself to get to the top of the mountain, right? To take care of the second half and get to the peak, to get to the summit. Ultimately, it didn't work out for him. He made it a little further than halfway and then had to turn around. But that's what happens when we're not prepared. But here we are, right? This is what we have to do. We have to take that first half of the mountain, that trek halfway up the mountain, and figure out and put a plan in place to get to the top of the mountain. Again, back to Governor Wolf's words, now that it's set in stone, more or less, that this school year is not going to start again, right? The 1920 school year will be a year that is going to rely on cyber education. So accepting that as our reality, we can start the grieving process, right? And then we can finally get to acceptance and we can move on. And through this, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the 7 stages of grief, and I think it's a perfect metaphor for what we're going through now. Let's go through those 7 stages and see where we are and see what we need to do to move forward. Because we can excuse schools for the first couple weeks while they were getting a plan in place, right? While they were still in the shock and denial phase, which is the first phase of grief, right? That's shock and denial. It's kind of a disbelief that what's happening to us is real, but this is real. This is happening. School is not going to start again for the 1920 school year. That's what I think, right? We can't deny the reality in order to avoid the pain. It sucks. I hate it, but this is our reality. And that shock sometimes provides us with an emotional protection that's better than being overwhelmed all at once. So maybe those 2 weeks, maybe that was necessary to protect us emotionally. Because I think we're accepting it a little better now than maybe we would have accepted it March 1st, the beginning of March, if someone told us, look, you're home for the next 2 months, school shut down, right? So this little by little, bite by bite way to put this on us, maybe it's helped us. But here we are where we have to accept the fact that life is more or less shut down for the next 30 days. So what do we do? What comes next? The second phase of grief is pain and guilt, right? So the shock's wearing off, and it's going to be replaced with suffering and unbelievable pain. And that's kind of what I felt yesterday, and I let myself feel it, right? Because it sucks, and it's excruciating, and it's unbearable, but it's important that you experience it and you feel it. Because if you try to hide it with drugs or alcohol or other inappropriate escape mechanisms, you're not going to get to the next stages of grief, and then you're not going to finally get to the acceptance phase, and you're not going to finally move on, right? You may even have guilty feelings that you weren't better prepared, or you may have wished there were things you did that you didn't do, but you have to get over that. But look, it is important to take a minute and feel it, but move on, right? And where do we move on to? It's not much better. The third stage of grief is anger and bargaining, right? We're frustrated, and that becomes anger. And you know what anger means? It's going to lead us to lash out, and it's going to lead us to blame people, right? We're going to want to place blame, and we're going to want to start fights, and we're going to be on edge, right? Another person was telling me they were in a Chick-fil-A line, and they were trying to merge into the Chick-fil-A line, and someone started honking at them, and it turned into a war outside of Chick-fil-A. And we have to be better than that, right? Because here is the perfect, on most days we say we don't know what someone else is going through, so be kind to them. But here we know that everyone's eating shit right now, right? So especially during these times, we have to be kind. And I'm a lawyer, and I practice education law. I don't practice family law, but to some people I might be the only lawyer they know. And this is not an exaggeration, and it's not a joke, and it's not funny, but in the past week, 5 people I know have reached out to me asking to recommend a divorce lawyer. And this sucks, right? We have to do our best to control this. We have to know it's real feelings. We have to know it's tough situations that we're put in. But we also have to know that lashing out and being angry and saying mean things can have permanent, irreparable damage to your relationships, right? So meditate, work out. If you can get your hands on weights, do what you can do to stay calm. And just remember, look, we're all angry, but by lashing out, it can and will cause permanent damage in your relationships. So this isn't the time to release your bottled up emotions. This is a time to find a productive outlet for your emotions. Moving on to the next stage of grief, and it's not getting better, because after the anger subsides, then depression sets in, right? And loneliness sets in. And it sucks. It sucks more and more. But again, this is normal, and we have to let it play its part so that it can pass. And we have to not only accept, but once we understand and we label our emotion and we know that, look, this is all part of the healing process, and really to a large extent, social life has been taken away from it. So it is a loss. And I think the stages of grief are super relevant, right? The depression is going to happen, right? But we have to know that it's going to pass. It's going to move on. And something that I got from a meditation app that I used, I think it might have been Headspace, was to think of thoughts and feelings as clouds, right? And you're laying on the ground and you're looking at the clouds and you see a dark cloud, right? Just look at it and accept that there's that cloud. It's going to pass. And you can even picture that thought in your head as the cloud, right? And then just and label it and say, look, I feel really sad that I can't do this right now. And then just let it go, right? But don't fight it, because counterintuitively, fighting those feelings makes the cloud stay, right? So if you're like, oh, I don't want to consider this, I don't want to think about this, I don't want to let that feeling move on, right? That's what's going to happen. You're not going to let that feeling move on. But once you label that cloud, you can watch it pass. And this may not be helpful, right? Because guess what? Encouragement from others during this time is often not helpful. People telling you it's all going to be all right, it's hard to believe that. But believe it and trust the process and trust that you're not alone, and a lot of other people are going through the exact same situation as you are. And I'm not going to say or worse, because no one can calculate the pain that someone's feeling, right? But just know that these feelings are normal, and if you label them and let them pass, they will pass. The irony of all this is that in a typical loss situation, we isolate ourselves. Right? That's what people tend to do. They isolate themselves. But here we're in this situation because we're being forced to isolate. Right? We're isolating on purpose. So that's kind of interesting, right? The way that we would deal with a breakup or heartache might be like staying inside for a week or 2 weeks or a month, right? And your friends tell you, what do they tell you? Like, no, you need to go out. You need to put yourself out there. But we can't do that, right? We can't go out. We can't put ourselves out there, because the exact cure that some people would recommend is precisely what we're not able to do, right? So it definitely complicates the situation, but that doesn't matter, right? Because when you can't go outside, again, this is something I saw on the internet, when you can't go outside, go inside, right? So now we need to really go inside, which is a scary place to be. If you've ever done any isolation work in like a tank, in a water tank, a sensory deprivation tank, where you're you're floating in heavy salt water, that's your exact body temperature, right? And you don't know where your body begins, your body ends, and the world begins, and it's totally quiet, and it's totally dark, and it's totally scary, right? I've spent a few hours in these tanks, and I can tell you it's a scary place to be, because you're alone with your thoughts, and that's where we are right now, right? In one of the scariest places you can possibly be, alone with your thoughts. But if you can handle this, you can handle anything, right? So go inside. Find what you've been so scared of, for those who haven't gone inside. Books, meditation, TV shows, FaceTiming friends, writing, drawing, cooking, all these things that you heard a million times, they actually do them because they actually work. So we can't go inside, so we need to go inside. And then guess what? There's an upward turn, right? After this, we're at the top, right? We're at the peak. That's where we're trying to get with this disease, and that's where we need to get emotionally as well. In 2 weeks, we're supposed to be at the peak, and that's it. When you're at the peak of the anger, the depression, the denial, right? That's where it starts to turn. I'm going to say it turns back up, right? Because we're going down, 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 but that's where it starts to get better. Because as you start to adjust to your new reality, your life becomes calmer and more organized. So what's that mean? Have you developed a schedule yet? I know that I haven't developed a schedule yet that I'm happy with, but I'm working on a schedule, because I think schedule and routine are important. I know they're very important to me. I know they're very important to children, right? Schedules, routines, consistencies, this matters. So now that we know what the next 30 days are going to be like, we can start to say, okay, it's not a vacation anymore. It never was a vacation, but now we need a routine, right? Wake up, and I'm also seeing a ton of stuff online about people saying like, oh yeah, 3 a.m. I'm walking around the house like it's the afternoon. Personally, I don't think that's okay. I think you need a schedule. Maintain your bedtime. Maintain your wake up time. Maintain your daily life, right? Actually set a schedule. At night, now, I've started to make an execution checklist, and that is basically a to-do list, right? But it's the things that I absolutely want to do. And I try to block out times for them. Because if I say I want to read a book, I might read a couple pages. But if I say from 11 till 12, I'm going to read, right? From 12 till 1, I'm going to work on content for educationlawyers.com. From 1 to 2, I'm going to work out. You're much more likely to stick to a schedule if two things. One, you make the schedule the night before, and two, you actually block out and chunk out time. So here we are. We're making that upward turn where you're adjusting to your new reality. You're calm, you're organized, because you accept that this is reality, so it becomes more of a routine than kind of the winter Christmas break where it's anything goes, wake up when you want, go to bed when you want, and then once you fall into that routine, the physical symptoms actually lessen, right? The depression subsides. You're going to feel much better. So that's why I'm saying it's good news that Governor Wolf said schools are closed indefinitely, because now we can accept this as our reality. We can create a routine around this new reality, and we can plan for cyber education, and we can plan for online learning. What comes next? Reconstruction and working through the process, right? Our logical mind starts coming back to life. We begin to see practical and realistic solutions to problems posed by our new reality. People can't convene in groups, so there's no school. So what do? Practical and realistic solutions, get technology in the hands of kids, get technology in the hands of educators, and have online school, cyber education. We begin reframing and reconstructing our new life so we can finally get to the final stage, which is acceptance and hope. Right? And that's where I want to jump ahead to that. I'm going through these stages. Each stage doesn't have to take a week or a day. You can go through these just by acknowledging that here's where we are, right? And then hopefully, eventually, you get to acceptance and hope, which is the last of the 7 stages. We're accepting and we're dealing with the reality of our new situation. And beware, I'm not saying acceptance means instant happiness, right? But acceptance gets us on the way to that new reality. And we're mindful that we've experienced pain, we've experienced loss, but this new life might wind up being better than you've ever imagined, right? I think once we get into the telehealth and teleschool and tele everything else, I think we're going to realize, like, look, there's a lot of good that technology can do. Nothing will replace social interactions, right? No one's saying this is going to get you some higher level of happiness, but the depression will go away, right? And we'll accept it, and we really will feel good, and we'll move forward. And we're going to move forward because that's what humans do, right? That's what we're designed to do. Physically, we're designed to beat viruses like this, and we're also designed to adapt and evolve and move forward, right? But we have to stay agile, and we have to stay liquid and fluid, because there's going to be other unexpected challenges that make their way, right? We're not going to be able to prepare for every single challenge that we're going to face, but staying agile and realizing that we have a new reality and programming for that reality is going to take us from where we are now to the next level. So thank you for staying with me and listening to these thoughts. I hope they can be helpful to you, because we have truly experienced loss, right? So the 7 stages of grief are totally appropriate to understand this loss and to help us move on to the next phase of our lives. So follow educationlawyers.com/COVID for more updates. And in the comments, or if you want to email me at joe@educationlawyers.com, I'd love to hear how you personally are dealing with the change and the grief and the acceptance of our new reality. But I'd also like to hear how your schools are reacting to our new current reality that, again, March 30th, 2020, just came out today. Governor Wolf in Pennsylvania said nothing changes for at least the next 30 days. And this is at the footsteps of Trump last night saying the same thing. We're going to keep the isolation as it is for at least the next 30 days. We're hoping it peaks by Easter, and then we can start seeing a decline in new cases after Easter. So I'd love to hear how your schools are handling this new reality. Please drop us a comment or shoot us an email at contact@educationlawyers.com. Stay safe, stay healthy.